The Social Security Trust Fund will be fully empty by 2033 unless major changes are made to the system. If that happens, retirees' benefits will be reduced by 21%, meaning that millions of Americans are going to have less guaranteed income in retirement. So with that being a real possibility for all retired Americans, it makes sense to run scenarios to see how that reduction would impact your plans for retirement. So let's look at a case study to explore how that would impact an overall retirement plan and talk about ideas that you can consider to help put you in a stronger financial position for retirement. So with that in mind, let's get right into this video. So in this case study, we're going to revisit one of the example scenarios that we've looked at in the past for Tucker and Candice. Now, they're 50 years old, they're going to retire at age 60, and they're on track to have just over $2 million when they retire. Now, looking at their overall retirement plan, based on how much they've saved and their full retirement benefits, they'd be able to have about $8,500 per month after taxes, so taxes taken out to be able to spend each month. And lucky for them, this actually lines up pretty well with what they'd like to spend. It's actually a little bit above their planned spending. So this means they're on track to really have a pretty comfortable retirement. With the trust fund on track to be empty, I would say I get this question probably more than any other question when I meet with people to talk about retirement is a concern over Social Security, the system being in trouble. And it's understandable, right? We get reports every single year telling us that, hey, this big pot of money that's set aside is going down in value and eventually it'll be empty. And at that point, are benefits going to be honored and continue to be paid out of the full amount, or are they going to be reduced? And on track right now, they're estimated to be reduced by about 21%. So first, let's look at their retirement plan. Now, optimizing their Social Security plan, assuming benefits are unchanged and the system continues to work and function at tip-top shape, then the strategy that we're looking at for this scenario that's going to overall maximize everything is actually for Candice to take her benefit early, so she would actually claim her Social Security benefit at age 62. And Tucker has a larger expected benefit. He would delay his until age 70. Doesn't always make sense for every retired couple, but for this couple, that would be the way for them to overall kind of optimize their situation. So let's look at their cash flows in retirement, and you'll see how that kind of pans out. So obviously, with them retiring at age 60, so we're jumping forward into the future 10 years. Here we go, 2035. And you can see that this yellow represents their cash flow, where it's coming from. It's coming all the way, or I should say, it's coming completely from their portfolio for the first 2 years. Then at 62, like I said, Candice's benefit kicks in. That goes for the next several years until Tucker hits 70 and his kicks in. You can see that with their overall spending plan. This is pretty typical of what I see for retirees, is that early on in retirement, there's a heavier emphasis on drawing from the portfolio. But as time goes on, and especially when somebody has an above average Social Security benefit, you can see that once it fully kicks in, their overall retirement income, and at that point, inflation adjusted, it's about $13,000 a month. The vast majority of it, almost all of it is coming just from Social Security, that guaranteed income source. So, that begs the question, okay, so if Social Security is going to be reduced, how do I need to adjust proactively? Is there something I can do on the front end, or at a minimum, I'd like to see what that would look like for my overall retirement. How much am I going to need to reduce my spending and everything? So let's jump to the next scenario, which is their plan with a reduced Social Security benefit. So now we're looking at their same plan. You can see retiring in the summer of 2035. They're still on track to have just over $2 million of income, but their projected benefit, or I should say their projected overall retirement paycheck from all sources starting early in retirement is now, instead of being about $8,500, it's $7,600. And I guess obviously that's kind of intuitive. It makes sense. Your Social Security benefit goes down. That means that you're going to have overall, you're going to have a reduced income. But let's look at why that is. So if we come over to the cash flow tab, and same thing, let's fast forward 10 years, we get here to 2035, and you can see that same thing in the beginning of retirement, everything is coming from the portfolio. Then Candice's benefit kicks in, but it's 21% reduced from what it was before. And then same thing, let's say Tucker still waits until age 70. His age 70 benefit is also reduced by 21%. Now, with that being the case, you can see that if we compare this graph with the previous scenario, once his Social Security benefit kicks in, yes, at that point, the majority of their income is still coming from Social Security, from that guaranteed source. However, they're relying more on their portfolio later on in retirement. So from just an overall kind of cash flow and investing standpoint, that means that in the beginning and the early on in retirement, even though they still have the same dollar amount, just over $2 million, they can't spend down as much early on because they're going to need more of those dollars allocated allocated for the future to be able to offset that reduced Social Security benefit. So in practical terms, if they don't do any planning or anything, in anticipation of this to try and prepare for it, really what it means is, okay, we're just going to have less income, and they would adjust their lifestyle accordingly. So if they wanted to, let's say, still have about $8,500 a month of income, kind of that pre-reduced Social Security, based on that pre-Social Security reduced plan, what could they do? Well, it's pretty straightforward. What they could do is they could just increase their savings between now and when they retire. But in order to do that, that has a direct implication to their lifestyle for the next 10 years. Is it really worth it for them to say, hey, we want to have a higher income at age 60, so we're going to save even more of our income today, do less things, have less discretionary income so that we can have a stronger situation at retirement? It's not like a black and white, like a good or a bad decision or a right or a wrong decision. This just comes down to, frankly, weighing the pros and cons of the two approaches and deciding what makes the most sense for your own situation. Now, with all this being said, let's say that they wanted to have a higher income in retirement, and so they intentionally saved more between now and when they retire so they could have that. Well, one of the risks they would face is that changes are made to the Social Security system similar to what happened back in the early 1980s, and people who are close to retirement or are retired have their benefits maintained as the status quo, and then, benefits are reduced for younger people. That's what happened previously, and if my gut feeling, and what do I know? I don't know anything, right? But what I think, my opinion, is that something similar will happen in the future as to what happened in the past. People who are younger will get reductions in benefits. People who are already retired or really close to retirement, like Tucker and Candice, their benefits will be maintained under the old system. So there's the risk that if they proactively save even more in the fear of Social Security being reduced, that they're going to really be living on rice and beans for the next 10 years.
I'm expecting beans and rice.
And so if that's a risk that they're okay with, understanding the implications of it, then that might be the right decision for them. All of this to say is that in order to make good planning decisions and understand the possibilities that could happen, you need to run the numbers and you need to plan ahead so that you can be well informed and empowered to make the decisions that are going to make the most sense for your situation. If this was helpful for you and you'd like to look at projections of your retirement looking at with reduced or regular Social Security benefits, click the link in the description. I'd be happy to run through your situation and help you understand how this might impact your retirement. So until next time, I hope you really have a great week, and I'll catch you in the next video.